ජනාධිපතිතුමා අන්තිමට මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ කතාවක් කරුවේ දෙසැම්බර් 10. මාස 3කට එතුමා ප්‍රකාශයක් කළා නැහැ.
බොරු අන්තිම දවසේ ආලේඛන සම්මත කිරීමෙන් දක්වාම මේ සභාවට විටින් විට ආවා.
Local authorities.
What's happening around the world and what's happening here at home? A very good evening to you and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's now take a look at your headlines for tonight.
For the first time in history, Sri Lankan rupee depreciates to 260 rupees against the US dollar. Prices of multiple goods likely to increase. Shortage of pharmaceuticals. Opposition says Finance Minister a no-show for 3 months. Basil makes sudden appearance. Vimal spills the beans about Basil Rajapaksa.
බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා තමයි ජනාධිපතිවරට එන්න ඇඳුම් මහලා ෆොටෝග්‍රැෆර්ස්ලා ගෙනල්ලා ෂූටින් කරලා අර මේ ඔක්කොම ලෑස්ති කරගෙන ඉන්නේ.
First up in news here at home, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated to 260 rupees against the US dollar today. The central bank says it has allowed the exchange rate to float.
The central bank lifted the cap on the exchange rate that stood at 202 rupees for a US dollar. Following this move, state banks were selling a US dollar at 230 rupees. But today, the selling rate rose to 260 rupees. The inflow of dollars to the country was severely infected after the central bank didn't allow the exchange rate to float. Sri Lanka didn't receive enough foreign currency inflows, although the central bank offered incentives for workers' remittances. The incentive paid was 10 rupees in addition to the exchange rate for every dollar remitted to the country. Contradicting views are being expressed on the incentive that will be offered for workers' remittances after the exchange rate was allowed to float. Before the central bank decided to allow the exchange rate to float, the cabinet had granted approval to provide an incentive of 38 rupees for workers' remittances. But in a letter to commercial banks, the central bank governor said that 10 rupees incentive would no longer be provided. Last evening, the finance ministry announced that a 20 rupee incentive would be paid for every dollar sent by expatriate workers. This has led to a confusion in the financial market.
The government has decided to offer a new incentive for expatriate workers who remit money to the country. There is uncertainty over that. We express our regret. First they said 8 rupees will be paid, then they said they will pay 20 rupees. After that they said they will pay 38 rupees. Now they say 20 rupees will be paid. The government must provide a clear announcement for foreign workers.
This morning you said you have decided to give 20 rupees more to the expat earnings from expat labour. But then Honorable Rohita Begunhadana says 38 rupees is what we are going to give over and on top of the dollar rate. This is the confusion you are creating in the financial market today. So this is because there is no discussion between the governor of the central bank and the finance minister. These two entities are fighting with each other.
The value of Sri Lanka's rupee has depreciated by 29% against the US dollar in the last 2 days. This has led to a possible increase in the prices of a majority of goods in the coming days. The cost of essential goods will increase by 29% if they are imported under the exchange rate of 260 rupees to a US dollar. A litre of 92 octane petrol can go up by 51 rupees and a litre of diesel by 35 rupees.
If we consider the global prices and the operational costs that we have to incur, we are facing a loss of 128 rupees on every litre of diesel that is imported at about 176 rupees. The monthly average is about 102 rupees, but we can't be sure that it will remain at 176 in the coming days. If this persists, we will have to face a loss of 128 rupees on every litre of diesel that's sold. For today, we are facing a loss of 80 rupees on petrol as global market prices continue to rise.
80ක අලාභයක් වාර්තා වෙනවා. කරන්නේ විශේෂයෙන්ම ලෝක වෙළඳ පොලේ මේ මිල යාමත් එක්ක.
දැන් මේ යන්නේ ඉතින් ඒක බොහොම
This decision has to be made carefully. It is only being speculated at the moment. If the cost isn't increased, people will have to pay for it indirectly.
වැඩි නොකරුවත් වක්‍රාකාරයෙන් මහ ජනතාව මේකට ගෙවනවා.
The cost of a 12.5 kilogram gas cylinder can increase by 824 rupees due to the depreciation of the rupee.
අද මෙට්‍රික් ටන් එකක් රුපියල් 300 ගානට තිබුණු
A metric ton of gas that was sold at about $300 in the world market has crossed $900. Gas prices are at its highest in 3 decades. We have to tell the truth to the country. There is a possibility that gas prices may increase in the future.
ඉදිත් වැඩිවීමේ ප්‍රවණතාවයක් තිබෙනවා කියන එක මම හිතන්නේ අපි බොහොම සත්‍ය තත්ත්වය අපි රටට කියන්න ඕන.
The cost of a kilogram of sugar may go up by 44 rupees, dal by 101 rupees and wheat flour by 45 rupees. The Milk Powder Importers Association is planning to increase milk powder prices by 300 rupees. A spokesperson for the association said the cost of a 400-gram milk powder packet will go up by 120 rupees. Yesterday, the government imposed restrictions on imports of 367 products after identifying them as non-essential goods.
They have said that a special import license is needed to import these products. When a few people are given licenses to import, that will create a monopoly in the market. The importers will be able to control prices. That's one part of the problem. The other problem is that they may allow their henchmen to import these products. Therefore, I don't think that import controls can resolve the crisis.
It was revealed in Parliament today that the Finance Minister had not made any comments to Parliament in 3 months while the country is facing a crisis.
As per the Sri Lankan constitution, it is the Parliament that is vested with monetary powers. The country's Finance Minister made his last address to Parliament on 10th December 2021 and it's been 3 months since then. He called for a ruling party meeting and presented the facts. You must order him to report to Parliament and explain the status of the country. It would be said that the country is bankrupt.
Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa was present in the House from the beginning to the end of the budget speech. He was here on most occasions when the House met.
I'm speaking after referring to the Hansard. He last addressed the House on the 10th of December 2021. He has not spoken a word on what has happened today. He goes around the world begging. Doesn't he have shame to ask for $300 million from Russia that is already at war?
The Ukrainian president is addressing his parliament when there is a crisis over there, but our finance minister is nowhere to be seen. Tell him to come here. The finance minister comes to parliament and responds to questions. The opposition's organizer is asleep, so how can he see what happens? I cannot issue orders for MPs to report to the House. If an MP is absent for 3 months, disciplinary action can be taken as per the standing orders. The chair has no right to do the same for ministers.
MP Kirialla must withdraw his statement claiming the country is bankrupt. That is a statement with no basis. This country has no diesel, petrol, milk powder, gas, medicines and even electricity. Is this not bankruptcy? The people are enraged. The relevant minister is not there to speak on this. If this is not bankruptcy, what is it? Take a look at the foreign assets of the central bank. It is in the negative range. Central bank's foreign obligations are $2 billion greater than its own assets. We were born in this country and are living in this country. We will have to die in this country because we have no other passport. We are Sri Lankans. So how can we open our mouths and say we are bankrupt? But who is responsible for this? Speaker, let us all come together at least now and lift this country from bankruptcy. The currency was floated and the dollar moved to 230 rupees. The media is reporting that the rate in banks is 260 rupees. So will the government award the cabinet approved incentive of more than 30 rupees to the expatriates? The finance minister is not here to respond. It appears that MP Kirialla wishes to start his day by looking at either me or Minister Basil. Sadly, I must say that MP Kirialla is always asleep and I wonder is he only awake when both of us are in parliament. The song that the people sing today is Vadakarna Ape Virua. I don't think the people listen to the Manike Mage Hite song to this extent. It is said that the CID is coming after those who listen to that song. The people are speaking out. I am seeing the finance minister after a while here.
good afternoon.
People are continuing to wait in queues for gas cylinders due to a shortage that has hit the market.
Gas shortage.
A lorry carrying a new batch of gas cylinders reached a dealership in Kurunegala at 10 last night. But some people had to return home empty-handed as the cylinders weren't enough for those standing in queues.
If the government can't run the country properly, they must resign and allow a capable group to take over. Tell the brothers to go home. They are travelling by air, but we are here every day.
Some people stayed in queues outside the dealership store throughout the night. A long queue was seen outside a dealership store in Ratgama since this morning. The police was involved in the distribution of gas cylinders after a new batch arrived at around 8:30 a.m.
The father, the sons and uncles will leave the country after committing destruction, but the other people in Sri Lanka will have to survive on king coconuts. It's difficult to earn a living in the future.
A long queue for gas cylinders was seen along Milton Pereira Mawatha in Maligawatha. Gas was sold to people who produced documents proving that they live in the area. A long queue for gas was seen outside a Litro gas dealership in Panadura. The situation was no different in Hambantota as well. People who queued up in Badigama had to return home empty-handed. Long queues were seen in the Hatton town as well. People have been queuing up at the Orugodawatha filling station to buy kerosene as an alternative to gas cylinders. Many eateries are also closed due to the gas cylinder shortage. But the state-run Litro Gas company says the shortage will remain for about another week.
State Minister of Drug Production, Supply and Regulation, Professor Channa Jayasumana says permission was granted today to increase the price of medicine in a reasonable manner relative to the exchange rate. However, a shortage of medicines has affected the people in the country.
Medicine shortage.
Pharmacies said they haven't received enough medicine based on orders they have placed.
ඉල්ලන ප්‍රමාණයක් එන්නේ නැහැ. ප්‍රෙෂර් ටැබ්ලට් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් පැක් 10ක් කිව්වොත් 3ක් විතර ඒ වගේ තමයි හම්බෙන්නේ. අපේ ඉන්සුලින් නෑම බඩු භාගයට නැහැ.
තයිරොක්සින් වගේ බෙහෙත් ඇත්තෙම නැහැ. ඒ තියෙන අත්‍යවශ්‍ය ඖෂධ වල හිගියක්.
මේ වෙනකොට හැම කම්පැනි එකම බෙහෙත් මේ එවන්නේ නැහැ. කම්පැනි මම හිතන්නේ 10කට වැඩි මේ පැරන්ඩෝල් පෙත් ඉඳලා මේ එවන්නේ නැහැ.
ඩොලර් නැහැ කියලා ඉවරලා මේ බඩු නවත්තලා හරියන්නේ නැහැ. නවත්තන්න ඕනේ වෙන ඒවා.
කියන්නේ කැස්සර ගන්න සිරප් වර්ග මුකුත්ම නැහැ.
Pharmaceutical companies are hoarding stocks. They are doing it because they expect prices to increase.
පහුගිය කාලේ ඩොලරේ තිබුණ අර්බුදයත් එක්ක
Amidst the dollar crisis, the Treasury stopped issuing letters of credit for all imports. At that time, we insisted that letters of credit must be issued by prioritizing medicines. But the Treasury didn't issue letters of credit for 3 weeks. Patients have been seriously affected today. If the government resolves this at least now, we will be seeing queues for medicine in the next couple of weeks, similar to the queues for diesel and gas.
අද තියෙන ඩීසල් පෝලිං, ගෑස් පෝලිං වෙනුවට ඖෂධ පෝලිම් නිර්මාණය වීමේ අවදානමක් තියෙනවා.
Long queues of people were seen at filling stations across the country today. The problem has affected the fisheries industry as well.
Fuel crisis.
There appears to be no immediate solution to end the fuel queues that are witnessed every day. Though a fuel bowser reached the filling station in Ahaliagoda, there was a long line of people waiting for fuel. This was the situation at the Kiriala town this morning. Long lines were seen at most of the filling stations in the Kandy town due to the shortage of diesel. The diesel and gas shortage has also affected the fisheries industry as well. Over 300 multi-day fishing vessels in Negombo are currently anchored off the coast.
භූමි තෙල් පෙට්‍රෝල් ඩීසල් ගෑස් හොඳටම කෙරුවා. අපි පොලිමේ ගිහිලා දීලා. අපි දැන් පොලිමේ ඉන්නවා. බෝට් ඔක්කොම බලන්න කොට තියෙන මොකටද? තෙලුත් නැහැ, ගෑසුත් නැහැ, මොකුත් නැහැ. එන්නවා කියන්නේ නීගමට.
We are unloading a 38,300 metric ton consignment of fuel today. Another 20,000 metric tons of diesel will arrive tomorrow. 37,300 metric tons of diesel is to arrive on the 14th of March. The first fuel stock imported under the Indian credit line will reach the country by the 15th or the 16th of March. Another stock of diesel will reach the country on the 22nd of March. That stock will arrive in the country by the end of this month. We will receive 177,200 metric tons of diesel this month. Therefore, we can assure the people that the diesel shortage will be resolved in the coming days.
It is evident that the government of Sri Lanka hopes to solve the fuel crisis with a $500 million credit line from India by mid-March. The majority of the Trincomalee oil tank farm is being developed as a joint venture with the Indian oil company. Even if the $500 million credit line is used to solve the issue until March this year, wouldn't this issue rise again after that? Or will Sri Lanka's fuel market be taken over completely by India? Allowing the value of the dollar to be determined via supply and demand and attempting to control the prices of fuel would only lead to a further worsening of the economic crisis. Is Sri Lanka attempting to release the fuel market to India, where the prices are determined on a daily basis by allowing the dollar to float? At the same time, 45% of the country's electricity demand is held by the 990 megawatts Norchole coal power plant, and Sri Lanka must always turn to China, even for the smallest repair at the power plant originally built by the Chinese. At a time when Sri Lanka's electricity sector is somewhat taken over by China, US-based New Fortress Energy also reaffirmed its interest in Sri Lanka. New Fortress Energy has reiterated its commitment to LNG and power projects in Sri Lanka, following favorable court ruling where, having considered the merits of all the fundamental rights petitions filed seeking to halt NFE's development of natural gas power solutions in Sri Lanka, the court fully dismissed the petitions without further hearing. According to the agreement, New Fortress Energy will supply LNG to both the Yugadanavi and the Sobadanavi power plant. That means approximately 700 megawatts of electricity will be supplied from New Fortress Energy. If New Fortress Energy decides to supply LNG to other power plants, Sri Lanka's crucial electricity transmission sector will fall into the hands of the US. It's something that cannot be prevented. What would be the end result when Sri Lanka's energy sector is divided amongst India, China and the US?
A silent protest was held in Kohuala for the 10th consecutive day today. The protesters are opposing the electricity, gas, fuel and the dollar crisis in the country.
The protesters held camels at the Kohuala junction as they staged the silent demonstration. Our correspondent reported that the protest had begun at around 7:30 p.m.
We have tolerated for too long and the government has taken us for a ride. The essentials we need in this country we don't have. Children are without milk. We don't have gas, no fuel.
Don't give us any more trouble, just go home. We are sick and tired. We have had enough. Is there any more that you can plunder from this country as a family?
British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Sarah Halton, met with the chief prelates of the Malwatu and Askari chapters of the Siam sect.
British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Sarah Halton, visited the Asgiri Mahaviharya today.
How do you see the role of yourselves and religious leaders in helping both people's current needs, speaking on how they can be helped in the future? Because there is often a desire to look for spiritual leadership in forming some of these decisions.
The political leaders meet the chief prelates and the monks often. We often advise them on how they must run the administration in a way that benefits the people. The problem is they don't listen to everything the Mahasangha says. If that didn't happen, we wouldn't have to face this situation. US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chang, paid her first visit to the St. Anthony's Shrine in Kochigade. She paid tribute to the victims of the 2019 April 21st attacks. Is COVID-19 the cause of the economic crisis? Sri Lanka's rate of inflation remains amongst the highest in the Asian region. In January this year, oil island inflation in the country rose to 16.8%. During the same month, India reported an inflation rate of 6.01%, Bangladesh 5.86%, Malaysia 2.3%, Vietnam 1.9%, Philippines 3%, Thailand 3.23% and Indonesia 2.18%. A similar trend was observed in Sri Lanka's foreign reserves position that stood at $2.4 billion by the end of January this year. During the period, Bangladesh reported foreign reserves of $41.7 billion, Indonesia $141 billion and Malaysia $116 billion. The strong foreign reserve position of our regional peers is largely due to their strong export performance. In 2021, Bangladesh earned $36.9 billion from exports and the Philippines $75 billion. Sri Lanka's export position stood at just $12.5 billion. While Sri Lanka's regional peers are performing well amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, isn't mismanagement the cause of the present crisis?
The South Korean and US ambassadors to Sri Lanka met in Colombo recently to discuss cooperation in the island nation.
South Korean Ambassador Santosh Woonjin met with the newly appointed US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, last Thursday at the Korean Embassy. Ambassador Santosh highlighted that the bilateral relations between Korea and Sri Lanka are multifaceted, therefore his participation is not limited to political and economic activities, but also extends to cultural engagement. Ambassador Julie Chung mentioned that she would make concerted efforts to promote bilateral relations with Sri Lanka in various fields and that she would extend her relations with the Sri Lankan government, businesses, civic groups and the youth of Sri Lanka. Ambassador Santosh Woonjin and Ambassador Julie Chung agreed to closely cooperate with each other based on shared values and strengthen ties with Sri Lanka and in the region.
The economic crisis has led to frustration among the people. Protests are being held across the country, urging solutions to the problems.
The Three-Wheel Drivers Association held a protest in Maharagama. Protesters marched from President's College in Maharagama to the Maharagama town. Public representatives are elected to resolve the people's problem, but this footage showed how opposition members of the Panudura Pradesh Sabha highlighted the issues in the country. A tense situation arose at the local authority regardless of whether a solution was found for the problems of the people.
A look back at some projects carried out by Gammatha. Mahasen Primary School building in Polonnarwa, vested with the public on the 21st of October 2016. Community Hall in Anuradhapura, vested with the public on 22nd February 2017. A bridge in Megahakula, Badulla, vested with the public on 10th October 2021. The library of the Kubukandana Primary School, vested with the public on the 1st of March 2017. A water purification plant in Thamuttegama, Anuradhapura, declared open on 13th June 2019. A road in Galedanda, Badulla, vested with the people on 1st January 2022. Gammaddas projects continue to grow by the day. Gammadda, by the people, for the people.
News: the Sri Lanka Freedom Party's senior vice chairman Nimal Siripal De Silva says his party will contest alone at future elections. He made these remarks during the party's Colombo district convention today.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party held its Colombo district convention at the Vihara Mahadevi Park today.
Sri Lanka Nidahas Paksheta අපේ පක්ෂයට අපේ බලාපොරොත්තු අපි ඊටම පැහැදිලිව කියලා තියෙනවා. ඉදිරි මැතිවරණයේ
We have clearly outlined our aspirations. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party will contest alone at the upcoming elections. Don't have suspicion over that. After contesting alone, we might then form an alliance with any party which accepts our policies. We don't want to be at the mercy of any party.
බලා කියා ගන්නව නම් අපට සන්දානගත වෙන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා. අපි එක එක පක්ෂවල නැටිවල එල්ලෙන්න උවමනාවක් නැහැ. අපි පක්ෂ 11 එකමුතුව අපි ශක්තිමත් කරනවා. ඒ වැඩපිළිවෙල ශක්තිමත් කරමින් පක්ෂ
We will strengthen the collective of 11 parties. We will not stop with 11 parties. We will join hands with other parties and form a broad alliance in this country to alleviate the people from the problems in this country. We won't discuss problems on who should be president or prime minister. The problem of the people is not who would be the next leader. The people will gather around any party that has a plan to free them from their problems and worries.
ජනතාවට දෙවෙන්නේ ඊළඟ නායකයා කවුද කියන එකවත් ඊළඟට බලයන පක්ෂය මොකක්ද කියලාවත් නෙවෙයි අද ජනතාවගේ ප්‍රශ්නය. ජනතාව දැවෙන දෛනික ප්‍රශ්න වලින් පීඩාවට විතර ප්‍රශ්න වලින් ජනතාවගේ දුක් හඳුළු වලින් බේරා ගැනීමේ වැඩපිළිවෙලක් තියෙන්නේ කොතද? එතෙන්ට ජනතාව ඒක රාශී වීමයි සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ.
What does it take to become a good leader? Here are some of the views expressed by the leader of the opposition, Sajith Premadasa, on leadership qualities at a program held in Jayawardhanapura today.
Once, President George Washington said that leadership is not only having a vision, but also having the courage, the discipline and the resources to get you there. I believe that a leader with a clear vision should focus on developing the educational sector of this country. We need to empower 4.3 million schools that are located across the country. Our children should have access to the latest technologies in the world and should be given the opportunity to improve their fluency in English along with their knowledge on ICT. As a nation, we should give more priority to these aspects. This will open the doors and empower our youth to compete in the global job market with other nations. Apart from that, it will also encourage our youth to innovate new designs that will change the future of this world. We should be the #1 in the world in all aspects. The opposition leader handed over smart classroom equipment to the children of Mahamaya Balika Vidyalaya under the 17th phase of the Sakwala program. The Italian ambassador to Sri Lanka was also present at the occasion.
MP Vimal Veeravansa says the government may bring an amendment to abolish the presidential election. He made this during 10 Questions program on News First.
I don't have such expectations. We don't know whether there will be a presidential election in the future. I feel they may even bring a constitutional amendment to abolish the presidential election.
The government MP made a revelation on the process of appointing ministers.
There is a way in which the government gives ministerial positions to people whom they don't like. They don't like Dallas Alahapirima because he poses a challenge to Nipuna Ranawaka in Matara. They made Uday as energy minister. He worked as if he was the chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Basil Rajapaksa is angry with Bandula Gunawardena. He was given the trade ministry. The Department of Trade was moved to another ministry. This is how they take revenge. But this affects the country. The
MP spoke on whether he plans to contest with the Rajapaksas at the upcoming election and also on Namal's future.
We won't contest any election with them in future. There can be personal friendships, but we won't maintain political friendships with them. I don't believe that Namal will be able to engage in politics based on how Basil Rajapaksa is thinking.
Vimal Veeravansa made a revelation during the interview.
Let me tell you something I never told before. It was Basil Rajapaksa who was preparing to contest the presidential election. He had stitched clothes and was even involved in photo shoots. We then suggested that Gotabaya Rajapaksa must be nominated. Then Gotabaya Rajapaksa had to overcome the obstacle of renouncing his dual citizenship. Through a US lawyer with ties to India, he explored whether there was a legal impediment to renounce his dual citizenship according to the US law. The lawyer studied the system and said that he wouldn't have a problem, although the other Rajapaksa will face an issue. He said it was for Basil Rajapaksa because of the white flag incident and money laundering.
The former minister also commented on the future of the Rajapaksa family.
I feel they will be the last family to hold power. No one can engage in a family role to this extent.
Ukraine has accused Russia of war crimes after one of its airstrikes hit a maternity hospital. The foreign ministries of both countries met in Turkey for the first time since the invasion.
The foreign ministers of Ukraine and Russia met in Turkey today. Turkey, which has close ties to both Russia and Ukraine, has sought to place itself as a mediator.
And I came here with a humanitarian purpose, to walk out from the meeting with the decision to arrange a humanitarian corridor in and from Mariupol. Unfortunately, Minister Lavrov was not in a position to commit himself to it, but he will correspond with respective authorities on this issue.
We reaffirm that the initiative that the Russian side once put forward to open humanitarian corridors on a daily basis remains in force. The routes of such corridors, the time of their opening, is determined by those who control the situation on the ground, based on an analysis of the situation and the need to choose the safest, most effective routes for the exit of civilians. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has accused Russia of genocide after an airstrike hit a maternity and a children's ward at a hospital in the city of Mariupol. Europeans, you won't be able to say that you didn't see what happened to Ukrainians in Mariupol. You must strengthen sanctions against Russia so that it never has the chance to continue this genocide. The attack had left 3 people, including a child, dead. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the bombing. 4 people, including 2 children, were also reportedly killed in a shelling on a residential building near Kharkiv. The UN Human Rights Office says it has verified 1,335 civilian casualties so far in Ukraine, although the number can be higher. This includes 474 killed and 861 injured. The US has warned that Russia might seek to use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki tweeted that Russia may launch an operation using chemical or biological weapons and blame Ukraine for it. Russia has previously accused Ukraine of having chemical weapon labs. Meanwhile, Taiwan has said it will have to pay a heavy price with China if Beijing tries to stage an invasion similar to Russia's. China has continued to threaten Taiwan by flying its aircraft into Taiwan's airspace. Ukraine's brave resistance to Russia's aggression has also taught us the importance of unity and made the international community pay more attention to the security of the Taiwan Strait. If the Chinese government miscalculates the situation and takes military action against Taiwan, it will definitely pay a heavy price.
Turkey's Antalya Diplomacy Forum got underway today.
Antalya Diplomacy Forum is a high-level gathering of professionals who deal with diplomacy, such as political leaders, diplomats, opinion makers or academics. It presents an excellent platform for regional and global actors from the spheres of diplomacy, policy and business to exchange ideas and address international challenges. Diplomacy remains the core method of communication among leaders and states, with the participation of more than 2,000 guests comprising heads of states and governments governments, ministers of foreign affairs and high-level representatives of international organizations, the first Antalya Diplomacy Forum or the ADF provided fruitful communications on global and regional issues among the representatives of politics, science, media and business. ADF has become the first conference held with physical participation and remarkable attendance in the post-pandemic period and was noted as an important event in the field of foreign policy and diplomacy.
And that wraps news for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Do take care, stay safe and good night.